Broadcasting from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, it's time for Executive Perspective. Executive Perspective is brought to you by Cresa, going beyond space to foster the best environment for every business. Now, here's your host, Danny Vander Maten.
Hello and welcome to Executive Perspective, a podcast series brought to you by Cresa. Cresa helps businesses optimize real estate by addressing critical facets of every organization's operations, including, but not limited to, the three critical L's: labor, logistics, and location. Cresa understands the value of business relationships, and that's why we decided to do this podcast series where we get to sit down with business leaders and learn more about their perspective. My name is Danny Vander Maten. I'm a Senior Vice President in the Atlanta office of Cresa, proud host of this show, Executive Perspective. Today, I want to welcome Mike Ayers. Mike is the CEO and co-founder of Watershed Geo. Mike, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the invite. It is great to be here, Danny.
Yeah, I'm so glad. In hot August, for that matter.
Very hot.
It's not getting any cooler out there. So, Mike, Watershed Geo, as I understand it, you guys are an environmental solutions company, and you offer a number of different products to industries, including waste management, geotech engineering, and renewable energies. What more can you tell us about what Watershed Geo does and what you co-founded?
Really, Danny, primarily we're an intellectual property company, which sounds a little bit different from the world of environmental, civil engineering. Renewable energy certainly is a crowded space, but our application's a little bit different. Not a lot of innovation in civil engineering to start with, which is where we began our business. Closing landfills, very niche business.
Very niche.
Landfills make a lot of money, typically filling them up, and they spend a lot of money after they're closed. So we look to solve a very long plaguing issue in the waste industry, where I spent some time in that area, closing them and mitigating that long-term financial cost liability. There is the known environmental liability, which for the most part was solved, but we improved the financial mitigation of cost over time. So that's where we began, and we knew to have success with something that is different, we had to have a strong technical team. So where we're different is we have a lot of engineers. Our core of our company is engineering. We have PhDs in the different aspects of hydrology, geotechnical, environmental.
Engineering, as we know it, is
civil engineers, but really a subset of that is a lot of other engineering, right? We have geosynthetics experts. We have hydrologists. We have a lot of engineers that look at overall environmental aspects. Not just PhDs, but they lead that technical due diligence team to look at customers' problems, try to solve their problems, and come back with solutions. So we're not in the box of providing products, right? We just don't sell a product. Sounds somewhat cliche, but it's true. We have solutions, right? So we go with a customer with that subject matter expertise to solve problems. So that's where we began the business. It's tough to break in to do something new.
It would seem that way.
Civil engineering, especially, Danny, that was high tech in the Roman era, right? Not a lot of technology, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So we had to test the heck out of our product. We had to come in with a lot of credibility. At the end of the day, it's about your credibility. Several of our customers known us because we've been around the industry, whether it was the consulting world I was from before I was in the industry side. A lot of very advanced degrees, but came in with a product that was different than the prescribed regulatory requirements. So that was one barrier, right? You have a barrier of regulatory requirements, very hard to get over.
Yeah.
We're radically different than what the regulations said you should do. Yeah. We're different than history. So it all goes back to that same question. What's different about us and what defines our company is that we're different. We approach things differently based on our experience in the field. And it started with that one product. And from there, as you mentioned, we have several products, but the same philosophy, do things differently, tack it from a different technical side.
Those products being your intellectual properties.
It's intellectual property driven. We protect it. That allows us to really get in that space and modify and improve it versus other competitors. We're busier as a race to the bottom to try to stay financially sound to grow our business. We took those margins by having IP, right? We're not competing. And I did not want to get into a business that competes. That's part of our beginning of our business. We wanted to do something different. Yeah. So why compete, sharpen your pencil, get the best price? People could not buy from us. Okay, we'll accept that. We'll try to do a better job educating. But really finding a solution that solves a customer's pain point and not have to compete. It's educating. They either accept it or they go another direction, but do our best job to educate the customer. And that's the approach we had from the beginning. We carry that now into the civil field, levees, waterways. It's not environmental from the standpoint of waste management or has waste management, which we do a lot of that, and a lot of EPA Superfund cleanups as well. But it's the same philosophy. Come in with a different technical approach, improve upon technologies that have been around for a generation. A lot of it's simple, right? It's not like we're building rocket ships. It's just a different approach to an old problem. So that grew our business to the next phase, from landfills to levees and waterways, recently getting approved by the federal government for our product to be used in many high-risk applications, which is a great credit to our team. And then the big space we're in now that's growing rapidly is the renewable. So completely different industries, right? But the same philosophy. And the renewable is really taking that next step of these liabilities, specifically municipal solid waste landfills, where your garbage goes. When you roll the garbage can out to the driveway, it finds its way eventually to a landfill. Closing those sites.
Yeah, when that happens, I never ask myself enough.
Magically,
where's this going? Right?
Yeah. Somebody on the other end is taking care of that.
Yeah, I just bring the cans down or tell my son to.
Yeah, there you go. So you've got the simple job. We want to keep it simple for everybody and make sure it goes to a secure place. And waste industries out there do a phenomenal job collecting and disposing, right? It's really the legacy of that land and closing these things. That's where we come in. We don't bury the garbage. We don't manage that aspect of it. We capture the methane gas, help capture that to keep it from getting into the environment. We keep rainwater from getting in, which creates contamination or what they call leachate if it breaks out. So we just try to find a very secure way of doing it with our applications. And then the next step over the last 3 years that has really pushed the business is taking those liabilities of landfills, that dead space. It has no other purpose. Even when it's closed with our product, there just isn't a good use for a landfill, right? It's hundreds of acres in a community that's just dead space. So what we've done is come up with a solution to convert those into renewable assets. So it's taken a liability, converted into an asset in the community by producing energy. And we have one group that we're focusing on that. 20, 30 patents. Again, a lot of testing. You don't just do it because it's an idea. You got to test it and prove it before somebody spends millions of dollars to use it. And it's their risk at the end of the day, right? The customer can't accept risk of an unproven technology. Sounds straightforward, but behind our products is a tremendous amount of evaluation, breaking, testing, failing, learning, testing, continue on. And that's how we built our business. So yes, it is good margin because it's a patent business. Yeah. That margin allows us to reinvest in those technologies. We've spent over $1 million in wind tunnel testing for our solar. If we were on, we were making 10% margins, not bad if a business you're just cranking, turning out stuff. Yeah. But for us, as we're growing technologies, that is reinvested in the company. And the whole ownership structure believes in reinvestment, thinking long-term to truly change a lot of the industry with some of our technologies. And that's a mission statement. Everybody's passionate about it. It comes onto our team. They don't look at it as a job. They just want to show up and make a difference and not stopping where we are now, keep looking at other technologies. And everybody loves the idea that they're making a mark on an industry. Yeah.
I think you just said that some of those problems that you solve for your customers sound simple. None of that sounds simple to me, Mike. I've got all the questions.
Good. Let me have it. Yeah. We try to make it seem simple.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like a very straightforward path, but one of my questions would be, what can you share with us about the journey of starting Watershed Geo and founding the company?
It does truly go back to the experience in the waste industry, which for me as a graduate of Auburn University.
War Eagle.
Great War Eagle, great civil engineering background, a lot of application, got a lot of great experience working the field when I was there and co-oping. So I'm a proud graduate of Auburn University, and I think I'm going to go change things and apply my engineering skills. The first assignment was a hazardous waste landfill in Mel, Alabama. So I'm in a very rural area of the country. Moved to Atlanta. I'm in the big city. I think, okay, this is great. I'm going to have a lot of fun. No, you're going to Mel, Alabama, more rural than the loveliest village on the plains, excuse me.
I got you.
So we're going out there, moving from the loveliest village on the plains to Mel, Alabama, and they're sticking me in the bottom of a landfill to inspect liner before they put hazardous waste in it.
And you paid for college tuition for this opportunity.
Yeah, I got to pay a lot of money just to get to do this.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, 200 feet deep, down in a hole, welding liner, inspecting it. And my inspection was down to one thing. They put a pressure device on the seam. There's lots of seams to weld the liner at the bottom. And if I saw a bubble, like a soap bubble, that meant there's a leak. So my whole 12-hour day was raising a finger saying, there's a bubble. Somebody needs to fix this. So that was my first career, about a year in the bottom of a landfill in Mel, Alabama, inspecting liner on Bubble Watch. Very good. Haven't used that. I'll use that again. So I was a Bubble Watch crew guy for the first year. And then you know what happens when you start your career in one industry, you become the guy that works in that industry. So I was definitely in the office when I came back. Oh, you're the landfill guy. So that's how I got into the industry, had been around it quite a bit, learned a lot before I hey, we need to do this, do that. You want to learn, which I think is important as you step into any industry. You got to know your industry. And I got some tough stories of industries and companies I've started that simply fell because I didn't know enough about that industry. Mm-hmm. But I was confident after a number of years, I saw things could be done differently. And I matched up with another partner of mine. As a
About how many years?
Roughly about 10 to 12 years. Okay. We, within the company, started changing some things, doing things a little bit better from an engineering perspective. But it was probably 18, 19 years that I partnered with a guy named Jose Urrutia, who came up with the closure turf design. That is that design that I mentioned that began the business. Closing a landfill, mitigating the environmental liabilities, and eventually create an opportunity for redevelopment of solar. So he and I both left our more comfortable day job to start that system in 2005. And an overnight success in 2010, we finally started making revenue. So after tons of testing, tons of figuring out how to make this thing work. Yeah, that was our first sell in 2010.
But to recap, just for the sake of putting this time into context, 10 to 12 years working in civil, it established and developed this product. 5 years of perfecting and testing this product and bringing it to market.
Correct.
Is that what you just said? Okay.
Yep. A lot of effort. And nothing's overnight, but that's right. Taking those skills of those years and 5 years to really refine it to something you can commercialize. Something that's willing to pay a lot for that and take that risk.
And that occurred in 2010 when you were able to commercialize.
First project was in Louisiana, constructed 2009, revenue 2010. That's right. Very first project. Finished in 2010.
And that was the start. And from there, how did it get to where it is today?
It's a great question because there were two of us. We did not have any aspirations to grow a business. We wanted to take that technology and sell it. So we talked to manufacturers that made some of our components in our supply chain, and there was some interest after we showed success in getting regulatory approval. But then we thought we don't have control of the outcome, the future success of that project or that product, rather. We're turning it over. We decided to take it on ourselves, start a business, and leverage manufacturers to go help sell the product.
But the goal up until that point was to sell that product.
Develop technology, sell it to the biggest supply chains that could benefit. We knew they were typical manufacturers, and nothing wrong with that, but they sell and they want to write purchase orders and they want to turn over deals. Mm-hmm. This is slow, lumpy revenue with a lot of hard work to educate a customer on something new.
I love the term lumpy revenue. I've never heard of lumpy
there it is. It's very lumpy revenue. In the early days, it's you get paid and you're like, oh, I've enough to last to pay the mortgage and feed everybody for the next 6 months.
Pack this lump away. We need this lump to last us for a little bit. Yeah.
Conserve the lump and take part of the lump for additional testing. So tough decisions to be made in the early days if we wanted to stay on our own, but it was the right decision early on because we got a second project, a third project. Then I guess our big step to where we were validated that this thing has legs, that it will really become what we hope is the standard in the industry. And it's not there yet. We really hope it does because there's so many environmental benefits to it over the typical earthing closure, which is a big carbon footprint, lots of erosion, lots of maintenance, lots of cost. Could go on quite a bit about that, but we went into California. California is a tough state. Mm-hmm. To get anything permitted is really difficult.
That's all I ever hear.
To get anything environmentally permitted, Danny, is almost impossible.
Yeah.
heavily regulated on everything you do. So we're coming into the state of California and their Water Quality Control Board in the Monterey County area of California. Very nice, pristine area, a lot of environmental activists. And we proposed our project to the county, and they actually were going down the road of traditional. They were going to cover with membrane and dirt and do all that. But they said, you know what, let's look at and evaluate it before we award the bid, which they were just about to do that to a big earthwork contractor. To their credit, in 12 trips back and forth to California, the engineer and the solid waste division of the county said, let's give this a try. But we're going to have to have a public hearing to see what the public thinks about it. And of course, you had to get the state of California to approve it. State of California, to their credit, said, all right, we're going to have very high standards. We're going to compare you against our prescribed cover that's in our regulations, which is the traditional method of membrane, drainage, dirt, all that. And we, on every measure, we were better. So they said at this point, and we have to take it the next step, we'll get community feedback. County did a public hearing. We're cringing. What does the community think about this synthetic system? And I haven't explained it in detail, but it is an engineered turf system, right? It looks like a synthetic turf, but it's got a lot of polymers in it that will last well over 100 years, produces clear water runoff. You don't have to bring in the borrowed material, so you don't have to impact things. So as we listened to the community, they came up and said, you know what, to do this closure in Monterey County, we have to dig up 15 acres of land to get the dirt. That's 15 acres you're never going to get back. From the end of time, that's 15-acre hole in the ground just to cover a landfill. So you're taking dirt from one space to cover a landfill. Second round of comments were more about the water quality control runoff of sediment on the landfills, carrying latent agricultural chemicals, constant maintenance. High-end, high-value homes surround this landfill. It happens. Build a landfill, real estate still sells, and they complain about landfill, although the landfill was there way before them. Regardless, they didn't want the activity of trucks going back and forth to hauling dirt for months to cover landfill.
Yeah.
And then every time there's a rain event, okay, there's maybe 11 inches of rain on average, Southern California, or this part of Central California, rather, when it rains. And it's a lot of washout. We've all seen it. So they have a lot of erosion. So now you're bringing in the big yellow iron back and forth, making beeping noise and hauling in dirt. It's just an ongoing process that never ends.
And this neighborhood's just trying to get their kids on the bus.
They just want the thing passively go away, just to sit there. So they came out and said, hey, you're not destroying 15 acres of land. We don't have all that yellow iron going back and forth, making noises and maintaining it. We don't have the sediment run off into the creeks, into the water supply. We should do this. And after that, it opened up for us. They decided
was that the first big win for the company?
First big win. We were doing 5-acre sites, roughly 10-acre sites. Did one in Dallas, about 10 acres. That was big for us at that time. This was 72 acres in the middle of the most difficult regulatory permitting body in the United States. And when we take that permit, it made a big difference for us as a company. About
that, not to get too far off the subject here, but I guess it's all relevant. Did you pick that opportunity, or how did that fall in your lap? How did you say, I want to go after this? What you just described, 72-acre site with so much yellow tape, as you just described it.
There's a saying we have, it's better to be lucky than good.
Yep.
And I have to tell you, this company's been very lucky. Yeah. Just fortuitous bounces all over the place. But I'm also reminded by our team and others, we have a very hard-working team, right? Luck comes to those who work really hard. I certainly didn't come up with that quote, but it's a great one. I know Ted Lasso, for example, uses that.
Yeah.
So how did we find out about that project? We write a lot of white papers, a lot of technical papers. We make sure we got published. We attend a lot of conferences, technical conferences, presenting papers on those other smaller sites. And there's something called the Solid Waste Association in North America. And we presented in a California conference. To my understanding, I haven't heard the exact story, but it was a conference, and I've been told it was one in California. Makes sense. And they wanted to at least fly out and take a look at our project, one of the smaller ones. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we had an engineering company up in the San Francisco area that knew about our technology. Their client was actually the county. So at the same time, they were presenting different ways to close that site on the early stage. Mm-hmm. They decided to go with a dirt cover. So they had already, the seed had been planted by the consultant, but when they saw the Solid Waste Association in North America conference, they put it together, say, hey, I remember that. An engineer presented that out of San Francisco that came down. Oh, that's that same technology. From that, we got a team of people from Monterey County, Salinas Valley, California, came out to our site to look at the construction. When they saw what we were doing on one of our sites, that's when it clicked for them. They saw more than just a brochure. They saw an opportunity to really fix a site.
Wow. But to your point, it really started with just working hard.
Let's make it happen.
So what does the name and what does the term watershed mean to you personally, but also to the company?
Yeah. Originally, the name Watershed is defined as the space we work, right? Everything we do is in a certain watershed. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't any kind of brilliance other than, hey, let's define our industry that we're trying to protect, and that was watershed. Quickly learned all these different developments of these technologies were big moments in the industry, a shift, a paradigm shift, a way of doing things. So every time we came up with a new product or good financial success, we called it a watershed moment. So we had these dual definition of, watershed is where we work. Watershed events, these watershed moments are what we live for, trying to get success with a client that's been tough to break down, that finally goes with our product, or team that we've been able to pull in and hire that is a big deal to our company. It's a watershed moment. So dual meaning for that word is over time it's been defined.
And it sounds like it parlays a lot in how the company's run and how I've heard you speak about the philosophies and the values, the cultures of the company.
Yeah, we want to make a big statement, Danny, what we're doing. And I think that does it. We didn't want an acronym. We didn't want something boring. Yeah. We want something that kind of stands out there. So it's caught on. A lot of people know us that name, either Watershed Geo or Watershed.
And it's an easy name to remember too, for that matter. It just rolls right off the tongue.
But it better be lucky than good. Right.
I'm curious too, when you think of Watershed and what you guys have accomplished from when you started, when you left the world of civil engineering to trying to sell a product, but then deciding you didn't want to just sell it, you were actually going to run a company, to the first big win that you just described, and to now, because there's been some time since that first big win and now, what are you most proud of that Watershed's accomplished?
As I look at our company, and we just had our national sales meeting of 63 people, it blows me away from an idea that really started, sounds cliche, on the back of a napkin at a coffee shop, to something tangible, to a closure, to building a business and supporting all these employees and their families is quite impressive that we have that type of organization and the talent that we've attracted. I sit back and look at that. These are some of the best people in the industry. We have some of the best salespeople. We have engineers. If we want to start at a consulting company, if we want to start one tomorrow, we could do it with those engineers. We'll never do that because we don't like filling out timesheets. We rather sell products. So I don't think they would go for it. But the point is, we have a lot of talent. To see the talent that we've attracted, what we're able to do to continue to grow that business, and the families it's touched, they don't look at our company as a job. If you ask them, I don't think you'll get the answer, this is just a job. It is a team that's working on changing an industry that they're directly involved with, and they all have a sense that this is the last place they ever want to work. And our goal is when we hire somebody, we want it to be the best place they ever worked and the last place they ever worked. And we do that by hiring management that is very flat. We're very open to discussion, listen to people, no egos, just get it done. And I think from that, we built a big organization. The other part of it is the looking at projects. Like, we really are making a difference in multiple industries that we're looking for somebody to come in. Mm-hmm. So there's the business, the culture side of it, the family side of the business, then look at what we're accomplishing and changing the landfill industry to prevent thousands of acres of farmland with solar. That might be okay, and so for some farmers in some areas, fantastic. But we can't sustain that to grow a solar business. But to provide a solution for solar energy as an alternative to that, to address these long-term demands. And we're part of that. We help create that. So that's pretty cool as well as we got into that space. And other things we're doing with the government on levies and protection, just making a mark on our industry in general is really cool feeling. I think everybody shares that in the company.
So to recap that, it sounds like you get a certain amount of fulfillment out of the work that you guys do, the problems that you solve and the solutions that you provide. And before that, in different words, you're proud of the people that have gotten on this boat and rowed with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
And good people attract good people. So honestly, Danny, you get started with some talent in the company and it just attracts more talent. And we just build upon that. End of the day, you got to sell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing happens without sales. It pays for everything. So a big shift of our industry that we focus as a technical company is to bring in those strong salespeople. And that's just allowed this thing to continue to grow. And God willing, we're here, we're doing other projects in 10 years and expanding the business. But it's a simple philosophy. You're not chasing the dollar. We reinvest. Obviously, you got to make money at some point, but you got to sustain the business. And our goal is to sustain that business long enough to continue to recognize opportunities to grow the business. So that's a big part of it too, is reinvestment and thinking long-term. We have a great partner, Shaw Industries. They think long-term. Mm-hmm. They are our biggest supply chain in the business. They are controlling interest of several years ago in the business. And we did that simply because we could grow, and same philosophy that we're not here for bookend January 1 to December 31st financials. We're here to grow long-term. I think everybody sees that, and that takes, I wouldn't say it takes a sense of urgency off. It doesn't, but it allows you to make really smart decisions on your growth of the company.
Mm-hmm. What do you think makes Watershed different from similar companies and maybe even other similar type of organizations, but are different organizations? What do you think separates Watershed?
I have been in the industry a long time, Danny. I've never seen a company that really focuses on the technical aspects of product development in the civil environmental space. There's a lot of commoditized products out there. To many people, they look at us as an engineering company. We're not. We are a sales organization. We have technology. What separates us is we're in a space that owns technology. We're not driven by pricing competitiveness. We're here to provide technical solutions. And I had a meeting yesterday about this, and this person recognized as we're in a meeting with other consultants or regulators, often a question comes up, a technical question in these meetings, and they look to our team for the answer. I've never been with a company that is literally, to be honest, we are selling something, right? Look for us, like, how would you answer that? Because we have that subject matter expertise. That's usually outside of an organization that's selling something. We have subject matter expertise that is sitting in our organization. So I haven't seen it before. And that's that's the core of our business, is to be very technical, but honestly, in the day, you got to sell it. But we can't lose that integrity of who we are. And that comes across to the customers. They wouldn't ask this kind of questions, or the regulators, they wouldn't default to us on some of the answers.
Sounds like you believe character matters.
Character matters. Culture matters.
It does.
We put so much focus in that, Danny.
Yeah.
We hire, they go through the gamut. They talk to so many people in our company, because a bad hire can really be a problem. A great hire can really grow your business. So the folks that work for us, they can tell you they have never been through an interview they have at Watershed. We're very proud of the company. We're very proud of the people we bring into the family. So we put a lot of effort in that culture and credibility. Credibility has got to be there.
Yeah. Can't compromise it. Can't replace it.
Nope.
It can get wiped away very quickly. So you're the CEO and co-founder. Was there a pivotal moment since starting Watershed that helped shape you in the role of CEO in becoming a more effective CEO?
Very good question. When you start a company and you're trying to do something that there's not a lot of believers, but you got to force certain activities and execute on, whether it's testing or trying to get a permit, you got to be a bit of a dictator. You're controlling things, right? You got to, and you're used to that mode. I got to build this business. I got a family to feed. We're doing this and this. I learned a couple things. One, you hire really smart people. You hear it all the time. Let them do what they do, right? Hire smart people so they can tell you what to do, not the reverse. That's not original phrase either, but
maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but in your business, when engineers are who you're working with, I could see how everybody you hire could be smart.
They're all smarter than me.
Yeah.
I don't even know I'm around. I just make sure they have the tools to be successful. Yeah. So it's really recognize the people that are technical, let them go, give them a rope, let them be successful, let them fail, measure the risk, but don't be afraid to fail. So recognize there's others that are better at things than you are. And also recognize there are some very skilled people. Just because they're skilled doesn't mean they're going to be a good leader. And that's another thing I learned over time. you hire in these really good people at their one aspect that they control and they do that they're very good at. They still may need help leading some leadership and leading in different directions. And that's when you're bringing other people to help lead and control that. So when you grow a business, you learn these things. Starts a little bit chaotic. You bring in other people, it gets chaotic. You have 1,000 things that you need to do. You got to pick 10 of them that are really important that you can do. But over time, you bring in talent and let them do it. You really delegate. You have to delegate and trust. So that's the other part of it. As you've controlled a business, you grow it, you get to a certain point. If you don't trust your people, then you don't have the right people. So you got to let their talent do what they need to do, but also recognize that you need some people to help them lead. Just because they're good, they have other people for them. You need to help them get organized. For me, I brought in great talent. One of our presidents and one of our early leaders is Kyle Eamon. Came in from a different industry, but he was very good at structuring that leadership. So you have to recognize the time to bring in the right people at the right moment when you can afford them to take it to that next step on the ladder of success, if you will.
Got it. So you mentioned failure and letting your people fail. How do you personally learn from failure?
Failure it's never easy to accept, especially when you've been doing something for a long time. And we've had a number of R&D initiatives and projects, and you think it's going to just make a lot of money, it's going to solve a lot of problems, and you want it to succeed, but you fail. You just realize this isn't going to make it in the market, the cost, and you have just to cut ties. So it's incredibly disappointing. The mindset that you really have to look at is, what have I learned? And I can tell you 100%, things we've learned from those failures have come back to us as value bombs in a different product. Like we go, wow, we learned that. Value bombs is huge. It led to the success, right? So we had a failure. We don't forget that. It's etched in our mind. We hate to lose. We hate to fail. It's just our nature. Hate to lose a sale. We hate losing more than we like winning, to be honest with you, because we expect to win every single job.
And sometimes the failures that we have stick out in our minds more than the successes.
I think if you're built that way, you're going to be more successful. If those failures, don't let them eat at you, right? That's wrong. You can't let them eat at you, but they got to be there. It's not about, forget and move on. I think that's wrong. I think you do a lessons learned.
Yeah.
And we're really great at doing lessons learned. At some point, that failure may be the most valuable failure you ever had.
Yeah.
You don't know if you don't record it, you don't memorialize it, you don't think about it on the next time you go.
It sounds like you're describing the difference between agonizing over it versus acting on it.
It's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's true with you win a job or lose a job. So if we lose a job, one of our worst days is when we lose a job. We just think we're going to win every job. But we try to learn from those mistakes. Why did that customer go a different direction? And I can give you stories like we just missed something, right? The customer didn't have an experience on one of our projects. When you step on our project, you get it. If you look at a brochure, you get it, you don't really get it. So we've learned, okay, we're going to give tours. We're going to spend the money to get customers on a project. So that was a lot of failures are recorded. Like they just didn't have that experience. We need to spend more money getting customers, potential customers to sites. We've flown them around the country. We brought people in from Australia a month ago, got 3 people to come look at it. We've learned it makes a difference. We're going to do a lot of work in Australia. We're opening up a lot of business in Australia. And that's because we asked the questions. We learned, why are we not getting some of these obvious jobs? Having that customer experience was a recorded failure. We just weren't doing that, and it made a big difference. Same thing with R&D. There may be a technical failure in a product that allow us to refine the next one that create an opportunity or an unexpected result, which is a patent. Sometimes you learn something you did not know you could achieve. It failed on your original mission, but maybe it can provide something else. And there's some products like that, like intermediate cover, controlling methane. Big deal. That product was learning from different mistakes. Now we can capture more methane, which is the biggest contributor to carbon footprint, which is another growing part of our business. That all is from learning multiple times over years. We now can refine that product. So there's 2 sides of that. There's the sales side of learning. There's the development of the product side. So it's a huge part of our business.
Got it. So was there a piece of advice that you were given early on when you were starting Watershed or even before that stuck with you, that has just stayed with you in your entire career?
That is a general question I think speaks to the philosophy of a lot of people at Watershed. Certainly growing up, I looked at my dad, who was big on trustworthiness. Do
and integrity.
You say,
Yeah,
integrity, trustworthiness, do the right thing when no one's even looking. He also,
because somebody is always looking.
Somebody's always looking.
Someone
Trust me,
always
you
is.
answer.
And if it's not somebody around you, it's you having to live with it.
Correct. There's a lot of things our company does right on being customer centric, working hard. You got to work hard. You got to have a passion for what you do, or you're never going to last. I think it's energy management, sometimes more than time management. You got to have that energy to sustain a business and work 12 to 16 hours a day. That's not happening if you don't love your business. So you got to do all those things. Test like crazy, work hard, spend time with the customer. But if you don't have honesty, then none of those things matter.
Right.
You're not going to be around. You're going to lose credibility. You're going to lose yourself. Early on, my dad had taught me that the value of being honest, the value of having integrity, credibility. If you're going to say it, you're going to do it. As one example, we had a very large project in our early years. It was about 50 acres. We had a failure of a big seam in our system. We had failed. We heard about it. The customer, we could have blamed on the contractor. We went out and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars that we did not have to fix it. I will tell you, years later, people still talk about us doing that. We also have one crew, Danny, that does nothing but go around to customers well after the job is sold to see how they're doing, how's their product performing, and we fix it right there.
That is so important.
And they say they don't see that. It's not hard, right? It's not that hard to do that. It is great overhead that gets return on our business. It's almost a form of sales. They know we're not selling and disappearing. And what you learn is when you're on those sites, there's other opportunities for stuff. They want to tell you about other needs they have.
But what you just mentioned, what's that role called? What's the title?
It's our operations group in general.
Operations group.
And then we have one guy that takes care of our oldest legacy sites because we have evolved, right? We have better technology. We improve like anything else. But our oldest ones from 2010 are still doing well. But he checks on those still today to see how things are going. Make sure it's going to last the test of time throughout the waste degradation part of it. And I think that speaks, one, initially, it's just do what you say you're going to do. You sold them something. They spent, in some cases, tens of millions of dollars to buy your product. Don't disappear. Take care of them. The other side of it, which wasn't our intention, I promise you, it's led to a lot of sales.
I bet.
One, reputation. Two, you're selling something to an existing customer. The easiest form of sales is to sell to someone you're already doing business with.
Yes.
So we have now doubled down on that. We have quite a large operation crew that does a couple things. They scorecard our installer to make sure the quality integrity is there. They check on the project well afterwards, and they always have an ear open to what's going on. What else can we do for you?
Yeah, it's too easy after a big project gets done to think that, okay, we've seen enough of each other for a little bit. Let's just go away for a while. But that's not the case.
No, it's back to your earlier question. Why are we different, Danny?
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're brilliant. We're just doing, to me, the obvious things. No one that I know follows up with our customers like we do. Honest, it's just who we are. It's been significantly beneficial in our credibility and undoubtedly has helped our business grow.
I could believe that. Because I see it firsthand.
No,
myself.
I appreciate that.
I do. So what piece of advice would you give to an aspiring leader, an entrepreneur, or even yourself when you started this journey? You graduated Auburn and went, what'd you say, 200 feet down into
hazardous waste.
Hazardous waste
for bubbles. Yeah.
What would you tell yourself, or what would you say to the next version of that coming into the workforce right now?
Yeah, I would say if you want to go out on your own and you have this entrepreneurial drive, which is really important, and that's not just a term. You've got to really love what you're doing. You got to have a passion for what you're doing. I know those sound like cliches, but you have to be so driven. It definitely cannot be about the money. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it for the money, you will not last. Right. It's got to be that you are so hell-bent on getting this done, you cannot think of anything else. It almost consumes you. That will allow for those 12 to 16 hour days. Mm-hmm. And you do have to work it. It just doesn't happen. You have to work really hard. You have to be aware of the setbacks. They're going to happen, but you respond, you be resilient. So I think my advice is, one, don't go in too early either. Don't just say, I'm going to burn all these bridges behind me. I'm doing this one thing. Mm-hmm. Try to learn as much as you can about what you're doing first. come up with a strategy, how you get to market. There's a lot of things that don't have to cost you money you can think through. You can talk to a lot of peers, a lot of people in the industry of what they think, but also measure that because a lot of them are not going to agree with you. We would not have started this business if the smartest minds in our industries gave us advice. We would have not gotten here. But you do need some input because you'll recognize messages you have to come over those people that are not going to adopt your technology. You'll know what those red flags that they perceive to be and get rid of them. So I would say do a lot of homework, talk to people in your industry. If you can, which we did consulting engineering for a while and started this business until we just literally had to make that switch. And that was after our second successful project and boom. So don't risk it all. Sounds a little counterintuitive when you go out on your own. And I'm not saying this is perfect for everybody, but when you can, learn about the business, make that decision at the right time to go in, but be very well educated. The business failures I'd had in the past, which I alluded to you before, is not know enough about the industry, right? You get in, you rely on other people, but you got to really know the industry or you're not going to be successful. And then step 2, track partners because you can't do it on your own.
Track partners.
Yes. Attract good partners. I don't think anyone's truly self-made. Everybody leans on other people, leverages other resources, but finding good partners to help you grow the business so they can share the load, but also have a different perspective. But those people need to be very handpicked and you need to be very selective on who would want to come in that shares that same desire.
Now, that sounds a lot like the cliche advice. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with somebody.
Yeah, I guess so.
But it's cliche for a reason.
They exist, yeah.
As you pretty much just explained.
Right.
So at the end of this program, which we're coming to, one of the things we like to do is to get a little philosophical and personal and ask a couple of questions just open-endedly that just help illustrate who Mike is and the organization that he's a part of and leads. And one of them, I think you already answered. This is the first one. It's what makes a bad day and what makes a great day. And I think earlier you talked about a bad day is when you lose somebody, but maybe there's another answer to that. But both sides of that for you, what does make a bad day and what makes a good day?
A bad day is certainly not properly conveying our technologies and losing a customer, a really good customer, that somewhere we have not done our job, but then we try to quickly turn that into, again, lessons learned. Sometimes it's making the decision to go all in on a product and forcing it to work. And sometimes you just got to cut ties. Early on, we had a number of bad days because we thought we had a great technology that was going to solve a lot of haz waste issues, encapsulated haz waste. We thought this was it. We put resources on it. The bad day is when we had one simple test that told us we were so wrong. And we could have done that earlier on. We could have saved untold amount of money and probably a couple of years of resources of not doing that. So a real bad day is saying, you know what? We didn't do our work. We should not have been having blinders on that this thing is going to be successful. You got to take the blinders off. You got to look at everything. And I think we were like success oriented before we start. We knew this thing would be successful. So you ignore some of the stuff. So a bad day is, we could have done that a lot differently. And we're not perfect. We still make those mistakes. I'm sure right now we're going through things. We could do a better job, but a bad day is not being who you are, which is really test and learn and listen. Mm-hmm. So that's always a disappointment for us in addition to losing projects.
Mm-hmm. And what makes a great day?
The best day for us from a company perspective is taking a really late adopter. The person who's saying no to everything. He just doesn't want to do anything new, doesn't want to take a risk, doesn't want to take a chance. A lot of engineers fall in that category.
Yeah.
I am one. Trust me. They show up, again, visiting our site, like I talked about. It's so important to getting onto our site. And you just see the light bulb go off. They just get it. Mm-hmm. They get it. And
the wall comes down.
They see performance and they become your best advocate. It flips so much, they're pushing you to get stuff done. So you're dragging them there. I'll buy you lunch. I'll get you a plane fare. Doesn't hurt.
They have this epiphany.
Finally get there. Yes, they see it.
All of a sudden they talk about it like you need to be won over.
Exactly. I said, all right, hold on there. We got more work to do. We need some topography and things to figure out. So a great day is when you've done a lot of work and you get really frustrated by the people that do not understand or challenge your technology. We've had some of the greatest technology people in our industries from various associations who have badmouthed our product, right? You have those. And if you're going into business yourself, back to your question, what would your recommendations be? Be very thick-skinned. It's temporary. If you're right, what they're saying won't matter. We had some very respected people on a global stage who pointed to all the ways one of our products would fail. And it was our biggest product. And they drew it up like it was like a foregone conclusion. Our product would not last more than a few years, and the customers would have liability and things would be destroyed. That is a bad day. Convincing them that they were wrong and admit it is a phenomenal day. Mm-hmm. So we obviously were not happy about that. Our tendency was to react. We file a notice of claim of damage of our company because we lost several projects because of that. Had a big audience listening to him when he said this, and it was recorded. Instead, we went and met with him, and he respected that. We showed him every test we've done. We got him engaged in things we should be looking at. We already knew the answers to it. We tested what he thought was important. That person became one of our biggest advocates. We joined his association. So now he actually promotes and speaks on our behalf. I think if we had a typical human reaction, we'd have been mad, we'd have made excuses, we'd have called everybody, we would have just pushed this guy out of our world and let's deal with him as he came up again. But I believed what he was saying from his standpoint, he thought was really true. I believe he thought it was true. It wasn't. So we just went up there with our team. We educated him. It didn't happen overnight. We got him turned around. So bad day again. Yeah, I hate losing. I hate people having the wrong impression of your product because you didn't give them the right information. A good day is when that epiphany, as you said, happens and the light goes off and bam, they become a supporter of your product. So
job well done.
Gotta have patience, man.
Yeah.
Gotta have patience,
Nothing
resilience. Not easy.
So one other question in this kind of area of this conversation, if you hadn't co-founded and if you weren't leading an intellectual property company devoted to environmental products, what would you be doing? What would you have fallen into?
I think I really have an eye for what is needed out there. It's just my DNA. Ever since a kid, I'm looking at things that could be done better.
It sounds like an engineering mindset.
I guess it is because I look at everything. It's almost a sickness. My wife gives me a hard time. I think we should come up with a patent to do this better. And 99% of the time I'm wrong. It's a crazy idea. Every once in a while, it turns into a business. But I believe I would continue to look at opportunities and specifically industries out there. In the civil industry, there's a lot for us to continue to do, but we're in that space, right? Environmental business. I think the agricultural industry might be one of those other industries that use improvement. It's a lot of modern things are done in agricultural business, but there's still a lot of chemical farming, a lot of different things that maybe could be done a lot better. What I've read, poverty is largely tied to agricultural business around the world.
Poverty.
Yeah. You improve yield in agricultural businesses globally. There's a big impact you can have on the economy and poverty in general. But I believe the standpoint of just improving the systems, I have an aspiration to see what that area is like. It's not that we're taking on as Watershed Geo or anything I can see in the future, but if I wasn't that area, probably another industry that I would love to learn more about. I know very little, but just sense that there's another industry that probably could use some updating.
I think you need to start an agricultural company.
Think so, huh?
I think
Farmer Mike?
I think Watershed Geo is proof that you could do it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Mike, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it. It's been a blast.
Well, thank you, Danny. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, telling us the story of Watershed and your core philosophies that guide your culture. Like I very much appreciate what you were able to share there.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah. And for everybody listening, thank you for tuning into this episode of Executive Perspective. And one last thing, Mike, if somebody wanted to reach out to you or learn more about Watershed Geo, what should they do?
They can contact us through our website. We got lots of links, and from there, be glad to reach out to you. Reach out to them. We're very effective of getting in touch with people that way.
Great. Good deal. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you next time on Executive Perspective.
Thank you for joining us on Executive Perspective. This show is brought to you by Cressa, the world's largest occupier-centric commercial real estate firm offering unbiased, conflict-free advice. For more information, go to cressa.com.